Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito here at La Scuola Culinaria at Tuscan Market in Salem, New Hampshire, with a few of my friends and you, because today we're going to make something called Abruzzese fiadone. And that's all there is to it. I mean, cooking doesn't have to be complicated. Add the cream. So about a half a cup of heavy cream goes in here. You did a great job, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Mary.
Over the base of the pan. It's a little rumba action.
I've got a relatively clean hand to work with.
I always say you have to keep that hand clean so you can answer the phone.
There you go.
Yeah. Ciao! You did both so well. You did really, really well. That was beautiful. I think you should keep that.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, absolutely. Today we're going to make something that really is a specialty of Abruzzo. And it's called fiadone or sofione. It goes by those names depending on who you're talking to. And so what it is a beautiful cake, a very rustic cake, that's filled with ricotta cheese. But first we have to make the dough. So the dough starts with flour, obviously. But here is where we really have to pay attention. Because if something says you need 2 cups of flour, that means you need 2 cups of flour. But it doesn't mean that you should dig in to your flour bag and drag out what you think is 2 cups of flour. The easier way and the more accurate way of doing this, because if we were in Abruzzo making this cake, they would be weighing all of the ingredients. But we don't operate under that metric system. So we are just using cups as measurements. So let's say you've got your flour canister open and you want to have a cup of flour. So you do what is called the sprinkle and sweep method if you're not weighing your ingredients, which means to lightly put your flour into a dry measure. This is a dry measure, so you want to use metal or plastic. Glass measures are for liquids. So once you have your flour heaped over the top of your 1 cup dry measure, then you want to sweep. And that gives you a more accurate reading of how much flour you're going to use. Because if you really did go into your flour bag and just dig out the flour, how many times have you said to yourself, that came out hard as a brick? And it came out hard as a brick because you used too much flour. So for this particular recipe, we want 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. In Italy, they would be using something called 00 flour, which is comparable to our unbleached flour. So we're going to start with our wet ingredients first in our mixer. So for this recipe, we need 2 eggs. And you really want the eggs to be at room temperature. Everything mixes better if it's at room temperature, except for egg whites. And then you want to have about 1/4 cup of either vegetable oil or sunflower oil, or you could use peanut oil. You don't want to use olive oil for this because this would just make the cake too heavy. And then we have 1/3 cup of sugar and a pinch, un pizzico di sale. That goes in. We have a little milk here just in case this dough might be a little dry, but we won't know that until we mix these ingredients. So now we want to mix the wet ingredients until they're well combined. And if you didn't have a mixer like this, you would be doing this by hand. Once you see that the wet ingredients are kind of pale yellow looking, then we can start to add our flour. So I'm going to lower this down now. And here's that flour. We have 2 cups. I can set this aside. In case I need that, I'll just leave that there. And now we're going to add our flour a little at a time. And what we want to have happen here is we want to get a ball of dough that kind of hangs around that blade because we're going to have to refrigerate this dough. So now it's pretty batter-like. So we close that. And again, add some more of our flour. Remember, that was 2 cups of flour that I measured out. 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of the sunflower oil, pinch of salt, and 1/3 cup of sugar. This is a very rustic looking cake. It's not anything fancy. And it's really something that the Abruzzese like to use in the spring when they're making really fresh ricotta cheese, and it's usually served at Easter. This is kind of like an Easter cake. So now you see it's getting a little thicker. We're going to lower that again, and I know that it's going to take the rest of that flour, so I'm just going to put it all in there and see what we have here. Okay. All right, now we're starting to get something. Turn the, okay, good. Okay, that's looking good. So now what we have to do is refrigerate this. So let me show you how sticky this is. You would never be able to roll this, you see? Very, very sticky. But in an hour, you're going to be able to use that. So get it all out there. And I didn't add the milk to this because I didn't need it. If I found that this dough was just too dry, then I would have added a little bit of milk. So when you make this, you just have to gauge, you know, is it wet enough? Is it dry enough? So then you just put it in plastic. And in the fridge it goes for about an hour. When it's ready, it will look something like this. Here's one that's been sitting in the refrigerator. You see how much firmer that is. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit here for a minute because I want to talk to you about the pan. So traditionally, this is made in a ring mold. If you didn't have this, you could do it in like a springform pan if you wanted to. But this pan is about 9.5 inches by 2.5 inches deep. The important thing about this pan, besides the fact that it's a ring mold, is preparing the pan. So you want some butter. So here we have some melted butter. And you really need to butter this well, because this is the kind of cake that you have to flip twice out of the pan, and you don't want to take the chance that it isn't going to come out. So whenever I make this cake, I always say 3 Hail Marys and then hope that it's going to come out. So you really want to brush it well up the sides, over the tube part, and even at the rim. Really, really brush it well. Then you want to give this a little flour. So take some flour, put it in around the pan. And you just kind of go all the way around the pan. This is double insurance that it is not going to stick. What do you do with the excess flour in here? You dump it. Tap it out. Okay, that's our pan. So we put that over to the side now, because now we have to work with the dough. So for the dough, you want to make sure you have a well-floured board. And it's best to do this on wood. Much better than trying to do it on a slippery surface. So really flour the board well. And here's our dough. And then give a little flour on your pin. And I like to use a French pin. This is a French pin. It doesn't have any handles because I have better control over it. But you see how nicely this dough rolls out as opposed to what we just put in the refrigerator. because if we tried to roll that dough out, we would just have a super mess on our hands. Now we roll this out so that it fits the pan that we just prepared. And if you get a little hole here or there as you're going along, you're just going to patch that. You just got to roll this out fairly thin. Get a little hole, you just patch. And you've got to go all the way around this dough to make sure that it is an even thickness. So it's going to take you about, 5 minutes to do. Here's our pan. So I'm going to gently put this over, and then take this dough, gently flip. And then you just kind of want to fit it in there. It doesn't have to be anything fancy because you're going to fill this. The idea is to give it some slack. Okay, like that. So now, this is what you have, okay? And this is where we're going to put the filling. So chill the dough so it's easier for you to roll out. If you see any holes, you just kind of patch. This is all very rustic. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to put this back in the fridge to make the filling. The filling for the fiadone, or the sofione, if you want to call it that, is a sugared ricotta cheese. So it's really critical that you start with good ricotta cheese, one that is not soupy. So, you've got to either get one that you know is freshly made, or you could go to the Ciao Italia website and learn how to make ricotta cheese. But if you have to get it from the grocery store, you want to take it out of the container, put it into a sieve, and let the excess water drain out. Because see how dry this is? That's critical that it's very dry. So we have 2 cups of very dry ricotta cheese here. And we're going to add a cup of sugar. We have about a tablespoon of vanilla, real vanilla, a tablespoon of flour, 4 egg yolks, and we want the zest of a lemon. Now, some people like to use an orange for this instead of a lemon, so it's up to you. I think either one is very nice. And this is a rasp, and this is what you use to get the zest off. You don't want to take the pith because the pith is bitter. So give that a good go all the way around the lemon. That's going to give it a really nice flavor. And while I'm thinking of it, before I mix this, I should tell you that we are going to use egg whites with this. So the best way to get the white is not to transfer it into a shell, but to let it just fall right through your hands. Transferring it to a shell is not good. So that's a good way to get out the whites. So now we want to give this a stir, because this should be very, very thick. You can use a hand mixer to stir this if you want, but you know what? I really don't need to do that, because if I do that, then I'm going to have to wash those blades in order for me to do the egg whites. So I'm just going to do it by hand. So this gives us a really nice filling. Now, some people like to add candied fruit to this, a citron, orange peel. Some people add chocolate bits to it. Depends on who you're talking to in Italy. But that basically is our filling. Until we add the whites. We have to fold the whites into this mixture. Okay, so now we're ready to do the whites. So let's talk about egg whites, because when you have to whip egg whites, you got to remember a few things. Number one, start in a big bowl. Number two, the bowl has to be super duper clean, and that means no trace of any kind of grease. So a bowl that's been washed and dried, because if there is a trace of any kind of grease, butter, or whatever, the whites are not going to whip. So then the next thing to remember is to separate the egg yolks from the egg whites while the eggs are cold from the refrigerator. But then, once you've done that, you want to allow the egg whites to kind of warm up in the bowl. Now that you know that, we can whip them. But there is a point of no return when whipping egg whites. So you want to start kind of on low heat, on low speed. You get them kind of foamy. Once you see that they're starting to look bubbly, you can increase the speed. And essentially what we're doing here is we're whipping air. We're whipping air into the egg whites. Now, when a recipe says whip them until they're stiff, that's a word like al dente. What does it really mean? You want the whites stiff enough so that you can fold them. But if you make them too stiff, they're going to be so dry that you won't be able to do one thing with them. So, comes with practice, knowing when the whites are just at the right point. So they're getting there, and you notice how they've changed color now. And in the old days, of course, we would do this in a copper bowl with a hand whisk. And if you didn't have a handheld mixer, you could still do this with a whisk in a bowl. So I know that they're not anywhere near where I want them, but I don't want them to be super dry, because I have to fold this into this. Now you see how we've got little like mounds, little mountains, and the egg whites are looking fluffy and they're looking shiny. So you stop and you take your spatula. If they hang on the spatula for an indefinite amount of time, you know that your egg whites have been beaten sufficiently. If they don't and they flap in the bowl, well then you know you got to keep going. So I think these are ready, don't you? Yeah. Okay, so now we have our egg whites, and we have to fold them into this. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because these egg whites, look how fluffy they are going to really lighten this batter. See? Just going to lighten this batter right up. So you want to do this not by, rushing this process, but by folding from the bottom over the top, from the bottom over the top. And when you have most of them in there, then you can add the rest. Do the same. From the bottom over the top. Now I should tell you that for this particular sofione or fiodone, depending on what you want to call it, besides making it in that ring mold, they also make these in cupcake sizes. But I wanted to do the ring mold version for you today. But if you didn't have a ring mold, this is another way you could do it, is to fill cupcake forms with this batter, and then they would be like little individual cakes. So you see how that has just lightened that up? This is very, very delicate, but rich, delicious, and it's going to be perfect. All right, now we're at the point where we can fill our ring mold. But before we do that, your oven is on at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to take about 55 minutes to make this. So let me get the mold. Nice and cold, still looking all together. There it is. And so now it's easier to do this with a spoon. So you just take that fluffy mixture and you go all the way around. And it's called sofione because you're able to see the filling through the top. The filling should peek through the top. But I told you, this is a very rustic kind of cake. Looks good, huh? Okay. Now that we have that, then you simply take that excess dough and just fold it in. Fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it. And as it bakes, as this bakes, the filling is going to peek through. Now, it does look very rustic. Now, then you have to cut this and just fold it back. Okay? Just fold it out back like that. All right, so now our sofione, very rustic looking piece, is ready to go in the oven. So, 375 degrees, in it goes. 50 minutes later, your kitchen is smelling beautiful, and it's ready to unmold the sofione. So here's the sofione, or the fiadone, however you want to refer to it, from Abruzzo, typical cake that's made around Easter time, but it's really good all year long. And you see how nicely that ricotta filling stayed within this pastry crust. And it has a nice texture because we folded in those beautiful egg whites, and we have some lemon zest in there, and sugar, and it's just delicious, and really goes good with a nice cup of espresso. So until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao! Portofino, beautiful. It's where a lot of tourists love to come. It's a beautiful day, a little bit windy today, and I'm just here to take in the sights, see what's up, and of course, eat. The Via Roma. We're on the Via Roma. I see a Grimaldi jewelry shop. I wonder if that's related to the real Grimaldi family. And I'm looking particularly for focaccia, because this area is known for focaccia, all of Liguria actually. One of the things you come to Liguria for, of course, is the food. And you would think it would be a seafood culture, but you know, it really isn't. The sea is not that friendly to Liguria. You find a lot of rabbit here. But one thing for sure you're going to find is focaccia. And here we have pasticceria, panificio, which means a word that sells all kinds of focaccia. So it's a specialità Ligurian. And you have focaccia alla Genovese, which is the classic one with the Ligurian olive oil, water, and little dimple tops. And when you put it in the oven, all of that oil seeps into the little crevices. Delicious. Then you have a focaccia with onion, chipotle. Then you have a focaccia with olives. Then you have a focaccia with cheese, al formaggio. Then you have farinata cecina. Farinata is like a baked chickpea pie in the oven. And then you have panettone alla genovese, which is a sweet bread, usually has candied fruit in it, similar to the one that you find in Milano. So that's what you want to eat when you come to Liguria. Two typical pastas of Liguria are corsetti, meaning little coins, stamped. I don't know if you can see the design on that. This is usually served with a marjoram sauce, and we're going to be making those, and you can get the recipe for those on ciaoitalia.com. And then trofie. Trofie are these tiny little, look at how thin they are, pasta, dried pasta that is combined with pesto. Of course, pesto is the classic sauce here in Liguria. So two classic pastas, corsetti, meaning little stamp, and trofie, which is their gnocchi.